Hello folks, welcome back to Insight here with Daniel Hayes and Andrew Blackmer, a dynamic current media offering. Check us out on dynamiccurrentmedia.com, brought to you by Octet Solutions and Blissful Blessings Events. Now, we were just talking about some money issues, economy stuff, banks that aren't to be trusted, that put your money into speculation and investments that create bubbles like the housing market and, you know...
Which is your reward, by the way, for bailing them out in 2008, right?
Why do we have to pay for the mistakes of the banks and the debt that they've created?
It's because they're caught up with the right people. And
Yeah.
those right people aren't you and I,
Yeah.
right? And that's how it's been going for a while,
You know?
unfortunately.
If you look at the amount of money that banks have invested in property, you know, as they do so, the cost of housing increases. So, you know, we're responsible for that, and then people need houses, and then they go to the banks, and they get loans, and then they pay back interest on money that was lent to them that was intangible in the first place.
Where did they get it from?
Where did they get it from? They just make it up.
Right.
Out of thin air.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which, you know, fractional reserve, the problem mostly comes from the fact that they have the full faith and credit of the United States backing them up, basically. That if something goes awry, we have what happened in 2008. Without that, and without access to funds from the Fed, a fractional reserve would just be like investing in a company. If it goes belly up, it goes belly up, right? And your deposits would be with like a federal credit union or something like that. And if you wanted to open a savings account with your local bank, it would be like buying shares, basically, in that bank, hoping that they would do the right thing. You know, they would have their right commitments and have all their ducks in a row. And if they didn't, people would not be giving them money, right? So that's a large part is that they're given a implied blank check.
But the problem here is this, okay? When it comes to investing money in companies and purchasing shares, you have an array of companies to choose from
Absolutely.
from a variety of industries.
Right.
But with banks, they have a monopoly on the money. If you want money, you're going to the bank.
Right.
So,
But then again, you have to say, well, okay, you have a couple of banks who bought up each other, right? There used to be many more banks than there are today. But they bought up each other. Now, what money do you think they bought up with each other? Bought each other up with? It's you know, the artificial money. The money they got from...
it's money on a computer screen.
Right, exactly. And so if you got rid of that, you severed that cord, banks would have to go back to being competitive and say, you know, if we want to take over territory, we're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way with blood, sweat, and tears, and not, you know, get mommy and daddy government to, you know, help them out, right? I mean,
Right.
that's, you know.
Right. Speaking of computerized stuff going towards blood, sweat, and tears, it sounds a little odd. It sounds a bit absurd, but I had heard, and forgive me if I haven't read the whole thing, but I don't think anybody really has read the entire Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare.
Including the guy whose name it's the moniker is given, right?
Right. Yeah, you know. I had heard that there is a clause in it that would require people to take an RFID chip, microchip, into their body that would contain their information. This is a radio frequency identification device, okay? So
A lot of people have them in their pets now.
see, that's what really scares me, because this is not far off from being put into humans. I mean, once they start doing animal testing and then production for animals, you know, humans are just one step away.
Right.
So,
Well, the first and foremost, the idea behind the RFID chips, right, in people, is that if you are hurt, let's say you fall down a flight of stairs, you're knocked unconscious, you know, the authorities, the ambulance crew, whoever comes and gets you, they don't know what you're allergic to, your medical history. You know, they don't want to give you something that could kill you. So they would, you know, scan your chip, and all the information would come up to them, and they'd be able to make sure to avoid anything that you're allergic to, any past histories that you might have had, medications that you're on that might interact. So the idea behind RFID chips is to help people. It's not. The idea is not a nefarious one.
Well, maybe that's just the rhetoric and not the idea.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it from an economic perspective, let's say all your money goes into this chip,
right.
And they create, because that's what we're doing. You know, we're moving away from physical currency to electronic digital currency. So
there's some interesting articles about the end of cash. By the way, I know that's moved on from that, but it's an interesting idea.
Hey, research everything. You know, don't rely on us to give you everything you need to know. We don't have time, but there are a lot of other resources out there that are interesting and also insightful. So,
but
fact check us.
Right, absolutely. But yeah, you're right that there are some dangers to it. Right, all of the good things that are alleged about them. Right, all of that aside, there are some drawbacks and there are some concerns. Right,
Mm-hmm.
For the one hand, who's on the other end of all this data?
The Rockefellers.
I mean, who knows, right? I mean, who. For one, I hope nobody wants to force RFID chips into anyone. I would hope, right? Because
I'm not taking them, and don't anybody who's watching us take them. No RFID chips for anybody.
I would feel very uncomfortable having one inserted into me. I wonder about the health. The health consequences.
And don't let them put them in your newborn kids either at the hospital. So they'll try that stuff.
But I've been wrong about things before. I could be wrong about this. I'm not one to think that I'm right all the time. But there are drawbacks though. One is, like I just said, who's on the other end of all this data? Who's reading it? Why are they reading it? What purpose for? What are they going to do with it once they get it? Another one, like I said, also the health consequences. Right? Mm-hmm. And what happens if the information is wrong? This isn't like wearing a bracelet like some people do and say, hey, I'm allergic to peanuts or I'm allergic to something, right?
Right.
This is a electronic signal that, what if somebody goofs up and it says this person's not allergic to peanuts and this person's diabetic but they're not?
Or what if somebody hacks into your chip
and messes it up? But everybody remembers what was the movie with Sandra Bullock, The Net?
Okay.
And a hacker tampered with her friend's medical history. And when they were in a car accident, they put it in that he was diabetic, and he really wasn't. And they put him in a coma, and he died when they tried to treat his diabetes. But I mean, that sort of thing could feasibly happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and you got to be worried about that. People hack into things right now, as it is. People hack into Facebooks and Twitter accounts, and things that are pretty mundane for that aren't going to hurt you physically, right? If someone hacks your Facebook, it's not going to kill you.
Yeah. And people getting into their own RFID chips, and then let's say their accounts are on it, and then they increase their accounts.
Right, absolutely. Or people hack into anything now, bank accounts, credit history, things like that, and you have to worry about that.
Right.
Those are real concerns that you have to put in there before you really put your trust 100% in anything.
Right. So I mean, a lot of the things that we just mentioned are, side entry, backdoor kind of things. But let's talk about the control that the government could have over you if you did have something like this. Let's say you have a scenario where your accounts are in this, and then this chip is implanted in you, and then you don't want it anymore, and you protest the whole system. They shut the chip off, and now you have no money or means to obtain money.
You mean for beyond just health benefits, but also if you have your bank account on there and your key to get into your house.
I'm almost certain, our focus on economics and money, that it's not just going to be for health. They're going to put financial accounts in here. Okay, you can even see stuff like that with this Google Wallet, with many of the new Android phones carrying near-field communication or NFC technology, where they are capable of transmitting information just via proximity. Even watching the stock markets, Apple's snubbed, right, when you pass along on something like that. Snubbed the NFC people They were approached, and the NFC folks wanted to have. I say NFC folks, which is very amorphous if it's like a single company. But the powers that be that wanted to install NFC in new cellular phones,
right.
Apple being as popular as it is, would have covered a great more ground if Apple had accepted to install that technology, but they declined because they felt it was unnecessary at the point because infrastructure wasn't there, for one, and two, they like to keep their phones as light as possible, and that technology would make their phones heavier.
Right.
And when I was watching this, around the time this was happening, Apple stock was hovering around $700 a share. And ever since they denied NFC, their stock has plummeted. I looked at it today, it's about $400.
Okay.
So it
who knows what
seems,
nefarious people are working behind the scenes?
Exactly. Troublemakers. But Andrew, you're big on religion. I know you studied that in college. Now, what this sounds a lot like to me is the infamous Mark of the Beast, right?
It has obvious parallels. Absolutely.
Obvious parallels, right? I mean, is this coincidence? You see the parallels, as you just mentioned. You have a chip in your hand, and it allows you to buy and sell goods, and without it, you can't. I mean, this is theoretical at this point, but we definitely already have the technology for it. It's just a matter of if the implementation of it is required in all humans.
It would make border control a lot easier, wouldn't it?
It would make all kinds of control a lot easier.
Oh yeah. You would someone fleeing a autocratic nation would be able to they're fleeing to a more prosperous, free place, right? No, and so you really there's a lot of concerns to it, and obvious parallels to apocalyptic literature, including the Book of Revelations as well. Yeah.
Right. Well, look, folks, we're just about out of time. Research everything you can about everything that is important to you and me and the future of our societies, so that we will be inspired and active and
Insightful.
Yeah, to ourselves and to others, and make the world a better place in general. And don't make trouble for people. And troublemakers, if you're watching this, I'm talking to you. But that's about it for Andrew and I. So, as we mentioned before, check us out on dynamiccurrentmedia.com. And this is another episode of Insight that was brought to you by our sponsors, Octet Solutions and Blissful Blessings Events. Daniel Hayes.
Andrew Blackmer.
Signing off.